keep falling under all this pressure, falling under ever since I met you. Baby, I'm no good, but you know better, better. I got all these voices on repeat.
Hey friends, it's Simon Hurley, and I am so excited for today's video, which is another card making life hacks video. I packed tons of tips and life hacks in today's video as we create one card, and it just so happened that each step was kind of a different life hack, which is super awesome. I know you guys love these as much as I do, so I hope you really enjoyed today's tips and tricks. If you're new, be sure to click that subscribe button and let's get right into it. Alright, so for this first technique, I'm using a liquid adhesive to create a resist on my background. And this is nice because unlike embossing, it doesn't have any texture or shine. So you want to use any matte adhesive. Today I'm using a little bit of Perfect Card Adhesive from Wendy Vecchi, and I find this one works really nicely. I'm going to apply a little bit onto my glass media mat or craft sheet, and then I'm taking a sponge and I'm going to put it through my stencil. Today I'm using the bubble wrap stencil from my latest release, and I'm just going to pounce it over top. Now you want to make sure to kind of lay the glue on a little bit thicker, so instead of doing like a blending motion, I'm just kind of dabbing it on so I get a nice thick result. Now once that kind of sits to dry, I leave it for 1 to 2 minutes. It dries pretty quickly, and you want an adhesive that's not going to dry tacky, so basically when it's dry you won't really see or feel it. But then once I go over it with my inks, I'm going to take in a couple colors here. When I go over it, it will resist it just like an Embossing Resist does, and it creates this really beautiful effect in the end. But like I said, there is no texture or shine to it, so it almost looks like it's a part of the paper, which is super cool. So you can kind of fade it out and create cool effects like we did in today's video, where just the center has that kind of dot pattern to it, which I think is really cool. So I went in here with some of my Simon Hurley Create inks and blended this beautiful background using Prom Queen, Guppy, and Clear Skies, and I just love how it turned out once it's all finished. So this is just another option to an Emboss Resist. If you don't have embossing powder or you don't have a heat tool, this is a great option. Then I'm going to go in with a rag and just like I usually would, kind of buff the color off of any of the resist, and there is how it looks. I love it, and that's just using some simple card adhesive, which is awesome. Now next I wanted to just compare cardstocks. To me this is a life hack because the cardstock you use is a game changer. So I've labeled here my Simon Hurley Create Stark White 110 pound cardstock and a different brand of cardstock that I used to use. And you can already tell just by this how much brighter white my cardstock is. Now I'm going to bring in an ink pad here, and this is really where it starts changing because the ink that you use has to be quality, but the cardstock also does. And like I said, I used to use this cardstock in the past. But one thing I noticed about it is that I get fingerprints all the time. And that's because the ink has kind of a coating on it and sits on top of the surface. So when I ink blend, you'll see I'll touch my ink after a little while, and then I get fingerprints off to the side because it kind of sticks to my finger and pulls some of the ink off the surface. Now another thing that I noticed about it is you can see I tried going in with a second layer of color, and the color didn't really build up on the cardstock. And again, that's because there's kind of a coating on the surface of that cardstock. It's very slight coating, like you wouldn't really notice it until you start laying inks down. Now I'm going with my cardstock here, and I'm going to just blend that out, and I'm going to do the same fingerprint test, and I'm kind of trying to get fingerprints on here, and it's very hard to do. My ink takes in really nicely to this cardstock and dries into the surface a lot quicker, which is really great. Now another thing that's awesome about it is it actually layers up, so if you want a darker color, you can get one, which is super nice, and a very important thing for me when I'm using inks. You can see how that color layers here and gets a lot darker and more intense. Now I'm going to do the same thing again with the other cardstock and really try to layer that up, and you can just see that it's not layering, it's actually almost just moving around the ink and just putting a lot of ink on the surface. It's not necessarily going in, so it even creates a bigger fingerprint there, but I'm going to test out my cardstock and it creates no fingerprints. So that's one of the main differences. You can see how much more vibrant and solid that color is. A lot of times when I see people using my inks on different cardstocks, if it turns out a lot lighter than the color really is, that's how you know your cardstock really isn't taking the ink super well. Now here I'm going to kind of do a water test, and my inks are supposed to react with the water and create this kind of lighter effect. Now on the other cardstock, like I said, it has kind of a coating, so it removes the ink down to white. Whereas on my cardstock, it just kind of removes it to a lighter tone and kind of bleaches it a little bit, but not fully back down to the white. So I just wanted to point out that you needed to use a quality cardstock with your quality ink, and then you'll get amazing results. And this has been a game changer for me. Now next I'm going to share how to do some stamp layering using only one ink pad, which is super awesome. I'm using an Altenew stamp set here, and I'm going to place the largest, most solid stamp in my MISTI stamping tool, and we're going to use the new Prom Queen ink pad here. So I'm stamping it down onto some of my stark white cardstock. I'm going to move it up a little bit and stamp down that same image twice without re-inking the stamp. So you're going to get kind of a medium tone image. Then I'm going to bring in another sheet of stark white cardstock and stamp it down again. That gives the lightest color. And so this is how you can do some stamp layering with only one ink pad, because my inks are really great at second and third generation stamping, which can be awesome. So here I'm taking the second layer and I'm stamping that full intensity on the second lightest image there. And then I'm going to stamp right onto the lightest image with the second lightest image. I hope this is kind of making sense. You can kind of keep layering it up with what you stamped off to get a darker color. So this next layer is going to go on my lightest flower that I had stamped, and this one is going to be the most solid ink. So there we have 3 different tones in that one stamp there. Now next, I wanted to show how to get a darker layer. So we've already stamped down that middle layer on this one, which was using the full intensity of the ink pad. And so here I'm stamping the second layer, but I'm going to do it several times. And since these are translucent dye-based ink pads, the more you stamp them, the more they're going to layer on top of each other to create a darker color. So here I've done that and it creates that beautiful tone. And then for the fourth layer, I'm going to go on top of this lightest one and do the same thing, just stamping it several times. I find maybe 3 or 4 times gives you a nice result and makes it really stand off against the other colors. So this was all using one ink pad. And the cool part about it is I only had to use one, but it gives me so many different tones that are exactly the same shade because it's using the same ink pad, which is super nice. So there's no reason to go out and buy tons of the same exact tone, just in different shades of it. You can just use the one ink pad and get lighter and darker colors from it. So then I'm going to stamp down the leaf, and again I did first and second generation stamping, and then on the one that's the lightest I'm going to stamp the second layer full intensity, and then I'm going to stamp the second layer on the next one and just continue to line it up, again like 3 times to get a darker color. And again, you don't need to use a MISTI for this. It was a little bit easier, but since I'm just doing stamp layering, it's pretty easy to just line it back up and stamp over top. But it definitely does pay to have a MISTI in this instance. Now next here you can see that really awesome layering, and you could use several of those flowers. You get really multiple projects out of one when you do stamp layering like that. Now I'm going to take a sentiment from my Doodle floral stamp set that says "You are such a blessing," and I'm going to heat emboss that onto a piece of black cardstock. So I'll just heat that heat embossing powder, and that's going to create a nice sentiment strip for my card. I really love that kind of bold and graphic sentiment there. Now next I'm going to show you a life hack for adhering flowers down. And I've done this in the past where I've just stuck it down on foam tape and then I've had to cut the leaves kind of apart in order to stick them underneath. One tip that I found is to just not stick it fully down, but kind of plan where it is on my card, but don't put any pressure down on the foam tape. What this is going to allow me to do is kind of pick up those leaves and tuck them underneath the foam tape before anything is stuck down at all. So once I find the position that I absolutely love, I'm going to just press down a little bit on the parts where those leaves are sticking in. That's going to stick it down with some foam tape and those leaves, so it's going to make it kind of all one piece. And then I'll take some liquid glue and I can add it onto my card like that. So instead of having to stick those underneath and cut them apart, it's easy to just glue them all down together. Now this next life hack is to save your precious cardstock. So here's my alcohol ink cardstock. This one is the glitter one. I love it because no glitter comes off on your hands. And I just find that I save a ton of cardstock by just using little strips. So if glitter cardstock or metallic cardstock, I don't love to use a ton on the card, but I love little accents of it. So I'm going to just cut a little strip and then I'm going to color it in with alcohol marker. And this way you don't need several colors of the silver glitter cardstock. You can just color whatever tone you want to. So here I colored it this light blue color to match the background. And then I'm going to just adhere that right onto my card. Now I'm going to come back to that in just a second here, but I wanted to show you a fun life hack for if you changed your mind when you're adhering down your card panel. So I'm going to adhere this down onto my card using some thermo web tape runner. And once it's kind of stuck down, I gave it a couple minutes and it is stuck. But if you're having trouble and you want to remove something, and this goes for foam tape too, I'm going to just heat it up with my heat tool a little bit, and then it allows me to reheat that adhesive. It becomes kind of tacky and more moldable again, and then I'm able to pull that apart. I still want to be gentle with it, and if you're having trouble with any pieces, heat that just a little bit more. You don't want to heat it too much, so keep your heat tool moving, but once you do that, it allows you to remove it. And here is that finished card once it's all put together. I absolutely love how it looks, and how all those life hacks brought together to create this beautiful card. Alright, I hope you guys really enjoyed that video. Be sure to leave me a comment down below letting me know your favorite life hack from today's video, or if you have any life hacks that you'd like to share with me. I love to chat with you guys down there. And also be sure to give this video a big thumbs up and click that subscribe button if you enjoyed it and want to see more content like this one from me. Everything I used in today's video is linked down below in the description in case if you want to check anything out. Alright, I'll see you guys very, very soon for another card making and crafting video. Have a great day. Bye!